Alright, here we are in section 1-4, constructing angle bisectors. Now let's say you see this. You see an angle. Oh, and by the way, just a little review. Is this obtuse, acute, or right? What do you think? Yeah, it's obtuse. It's greater than 90. Very good. And let's say, let's go ahead and give it some letters. We'll call it A, we'll call it B, and we'll call it C. Now, suppose you then saw the following moves start to happen. You see a little curve here, you see a little curve there, and then you see a little curve here, and then you see a little curve there, and then all of a sudden, a line is drawn through this point where those two arcs intersect. And let's call that D. Well, you've just seen the constructions for an angle bisector. So what is an angle bisector? Well, an angle bisector, and I'll just abbreviate, literally means to cut the angle in half. And so this is actually just kind of like our perpendicular bisector, except for instead of a line segment, it's now for an angle. So we can actually come up with 5 statements of congruency. Let's kind of talk through those. If this is cutting the angle in half, that means that this angle is congruent to that angle. Or, let's use a different color. Instead of using one arc, I could use 2 arcs here. And of course, if I use 2 arcs there, well, I need 2 arcs there. Remember, the same number of arcs indicates congruency. Okay, so let's kind of talk it out. If we were to say, hey, from A to B to D is half, well then that means that D to B to C is also half. And of course we know that half is equal to half. So we have angle A, B, D is congruent to angle D, B, C. Now I want to make an untrue statement. Let me write an untrue statement. This will be that will be our first statement of congruency. Here will be our second statement of congruency. I'm going to write this. Angle ABD is congruent to angle ABC. And I want you to ask yourself, is that true? Well, as I look at this, I notice that angle ABD is a half, but I notice that angle ABC is a whole. Well, in order to make it true, how many halves make a whole? And hopefully you said the number 2. And now that is actually a true statement. Now, if of course we can write this statement using ABD, the top angle, we could do the same thing using the bottom angle. We can say, hey, 2 angle DBCs would be congruent to the whole thing, ABC. Okay, well that brings us to our 4th statement of congruency, and we could write this. We could actually say, hey, angle ABC is equal to angle ABD, but we know that that's not true. Well, what could we do to the whole to make it a half? Oh, you essentially just multiply it by 1/2. 1/2 of the whole, or 1/2 of angle ABC, is equal to angle ABD. And this brings us to our 5th and final statement. 1/2 of the whole ABC is congruent to angle DBC, that other half. I'd encourage you to pause this, and let's move on to our next section.